My name's Tom. I'm with the DC Tutoring and Mentoring Initiative, and I'm very excited to have you all here tonight. Um, our guest speaker tonight is Leah Landry, who I have known since 2018. Feels like a long, long time ago, pre-COVID, in fact. And Leah was the co-founder of the Volunteer Engagement Network that brought together nonprofits from all over the DC area, crossing the range of different activities from environmental groups to human services to lots of tutoring and mentoring organizations, and trying to promote collaboration, which is, I think, just a core value, at least in my estimation of Leah. Leah is just a wonderful collaborative person. She and I work together on the executive committee for the Volunteer Engagement Network. And I just think of her as being one of the people I know with the biggest hearts and the biggest commitment to live out those values in her life. So tonight she is going to be talking about both her journey, um, both broadly speaking, as well as talking about her current work in somatics and helping all of us learn to deal with the stress of 2025. Before I turn it over to Leah, um, I, I would like to just tell you a few words about DCTMI for those who are new to DC Tutoring and Mentoring Initiative. I started this back in 2015, incorporated in 2016, with the goal of getting a tutor or mentor for all 60,000 or so kids in DC who are reading below grade level. That was an easy thing to quantify, doing math below grade level, or who just need an extra caring adult in their lives. And since its founding, we've grown to partner with more than 50 active organizations. We actually have like 90 organizations that we try to support. Last year, we signed up 6,500 people, although we're always working harder to figure out how to actually get them from sign up to regular volunteering. Our usual pitch at farmers markets and outdoor public spaces is you can spare 1 to 2 hours a week. We can connect you to one of our partner organizations, mornings, afternoons, evenings, or weekends. And we've got wonderful opportunities, wonderful partners who work with high school students, helping them navigate their path to college, and elementary school kids, helping them learn to read, and everything in between and everything you could think of. So we hope you'll consider signing up with us. You might be asking, why are we doing a session on somatics? And the answer is that more broadly than just getting a tutor or mentor for 60,000 kids, our goal is to really change our civic culture in DC as well as around the country. We believe that if we're going to make a world that works, people need to not only be of service to others, but also take care of themselves, and that the two go hand in hand. So we have a regular flow of activities we do. We do yoga at Meridian Hill Malcolm X Park when the weather is warm. We've done game making exercises to build a sense of community as well as getting educational games out to kids. We're always looking for ways and looking for partnerships with folks who can help people organize their lives, both to take care of themselves as individuals and to serve the community. We kind of encapsulate that in our Civic Leadership Challenge, which is to encourage people to spend 1 hour a day taking care of themselves or doing inner work, and 2 hours a week in community service of some sort, whether it's tutoring or mentoring or advocacy or cleaning up a park, whatever it is. If everybody does a little bit of work like that, it will be a better world for all of us. So, with that, I am going to turn the floor over to Leah.
Thanks, Tom. I am really excited to be here with you all. I know it's kind of a late night, so I appreciate you showing up. And I think that we could start with maybe a little movement. We're going to be talking about our bodies today. And I know that sometimes I get like stuck. I'm like, oh, I'm just a head on a screen. So it can help me to move my body a little bit. So for me right now, I'm like, oh, I really just want to stretch very high up. And if y'all want to do it too, feel free. If this doesn't work for your body, that's okay too. But maybe taking a breath. Oh, I forget to breathe a lot. All right, I feel better already. I am going to be sharing a bit about somatics. I had an hour-long conversation with my mom where she thought I was talking about semantics. So if you've never heard of the word somatics, you are not alone. Most people I've talked to have not. Um, so we will get into that definition, but let me start my nice little slideshow here. Uh, and I call this somatics for change or somatics for change makers. And I have a really broad definition of change makers, basically anyone that's interested in making the world a better place. And my big thing for this presentation is like, please, it'll be way more fun if you talk. I have a bunch of questions in here. The big yellow screens will be questions for you all. And feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have questions. Aaron, if you don't mind checking the chat, I don't think I'll be able to see it, but if there's any questions, please stop me. Happy to answer them. As I said, I'm Leah. My pronouns are she and her. I am a somatic coach and I'm also an organizational change consultant. I started my own business in the past 6 months, which is something I never thought I was going to do. So I'll talk a little bit about how I got to that. I'm also just really committed to justice and equity, both in my paid work and outside of my paid work. I feel like we all have way better lives when everyone else can thrive too. And I'm really excited to make that more possible for folks. I also love hobbies. I don't think I've met a hobby yet that I haven't liked, except maybe watching sports. I'm like trying, but it's just not my thing yet. I like to garden. I've been trail running. I travel. I like to hang out with my niece and nephew, who you see here. I recently started a book podcast with my best friend. It's been great. Highly recommend. And overall, yeah, I haven't met an activity that I don't like. And a lot of those things also bring me joy and happiness and satisfaction, all things that I think somatics can help us get more in touch with. Tom mentioned that I was going to share a little bit of my journey and how I've gotten here. And even since I was little, I was very committed to feminism. I was like, I don't understand why girls are treated differently from a very early age. But it wasn't until I got to college where I started to understand that there were these systems of oppression, right? That racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia, ableism were all part of these systems. And we created our communities so that some people could thrive and other people were being harmed. And in that peace studies program, I also learned about all these new ways that we could structure our communities. And I felt super excited about that. After I graduated, I worked at this organization called PBMR. It stands for Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation, which I think is kind of the scariest name for an organization, but they do cool work. It's a restorative justice community center in Chicago. I worked with the Young Women's Program. You'll see here this nice mural we made together, at least half of it. It does not look very nice in this photo. And while I was there, I was seeing all of these systems of oppression at play with the young women I was working with. And I also took a course by Chicago Regional Organizing for Anti-Racism, or CROAR. And that course finally gave me the language to describe what I was seeing. I was like, oh, okay, racism is built into all of our systems. And me as a white person, I've been unintentionally complicit in those systems. And it's like my responsibility to unlearn that. And that really shaped my path from that moment on. It felt like a piece that had been missing from the change work I wanted to be doing. And yeah, it's been part of my work ever since. I moved to DC and I joined an organizing group for white racial justice organizers called Showing Up for Racial Justice DC. That helped me do some of that unlearning and start to work on some racial justice organizing. Also started working at Catholic Charities DC. In this photo, which I know is super tiny, it's a huge free dental clinic that we ran. I recruited the volunteers for that dental clinic and it served about 1,000 patients in 2 days. And also, while I was at Catholic Charities, I started working with them to have a racial equity initiative at the organizational level. 99% of their clients were Black and Brown people, 80% of their staff were Black and Brown people, and the leadership team was almost exclusively white. I was like, and many other people were like, okay, that's a problem, an unfortunate problem that we see in a lot of nonprofits. And that work really got me excited about organizational change and how do we make nonprofits especially work better, be more impactful, and be more values aligned, both in their structure and then in their impact. That led me to Bread for the City, which is this fourth picture here. I was hired on a team of 3 to be racial equity managers for the organization. You'll see my amazing coworkers, Cam and Alex, in this photo. And we it was a new position for the organization. So we did a big organizational assessment. We planned a racial equity strategic plan. We did training after training after training, so many trainings with the organization. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, but when I started at Bread, I realized that I really needed somatics in my life. I started training for it, and it made my job there so much better. It made me so much more impactful. And it felt like the second missing piece that I'd have been not attending to around how do we bring bodies into the room when we're trying to change things? I've been trying to do it all from the head level. And it's like, oh no, these systems of oppression are in our bodies. We have to unlearn it from the tissues. So I got really excited about somatics while I was there. I started taking the somatic coaching training program. And then in August of last year, they had a huge budget deficit and they cut our entire team and 15 other staff. So we were all laid off. And it was not something I had obviously planned for. And I have so much more empathy now for anyone that has ever been laid off or fired. It is a very terrifying experience. Uh, and it kind of pushed me to do something I never thought I would, as I mentioned, of starting my own business and really trying to do this somatic coaching full time. Okay, that was a lot of me talking. I think there's one more slide of me talking. Our goal for today is to both understand and feel how somatics can support either nonprofit changemakers or changemakers generally. I have found somatics to be helpful for reducing burnout, which I know a lot of people are experiencing, especially in the beginning of 2025, helping us practice and build up our capacity for resilience, and then also be really values aligned. All right, I would love to hear from you all. My first question is, what helps you reduce burnout, build resilience, and stay true to your values, or stay true to values? Feel free to pick one of those things. Thank you all for all of these answers. I wanted to name two things. One is that I realized I didn't mention this about so resilience in this lineage of somatics. I know that resilience has been a word that can be really weaponized, especially against communities that have been oppressed as like a thing that people just have. They're just so resilient. But in this lineage of somatics, we understand resilience as a practice or a capacity that everyone has, and we can all practice to have more access to it. So just as a little tidbit around resilience piece. And I think as you all kind of were pointing to, almost anything could be a somatic practice. Like I can go for a run and be really feeling into my body and noticing what's happening, and that's a somatic practice. Or I can go for a run and listen to my audiobook and really tune out and not be in my body at all, right? And then it wouldn't be a somatic practice. So I love these examples you were all naming that help you kind of tune in with what's going on. Okay, I've been talking to you about somatics for about 25 minutes and have yet to define it. So I've borrowed this definition from Generative Somatics, which is a really cool organization that's been doing somatic work with organizers, community organizers. They also have really helped to politicize somatics. So it's not just about personal healing, but about the social context we live in and how we can both be shaped by the systems around us and how we can shape them back the more embodied we are. So their definition is that somatics is, first of all, a theory of change, and it's a theory of change that you can practice. So not just kind of an idea, but we can use it every day. It helps us move towards individual, community, and collective liberation. And then the third piece of the definition is that the way we do it is by embodying the transformation, not just knowing in our head that what we're doing is wrong or that we want to be doing something else, but really feeling it in our body and being able to have different behaviors, make different choices. This might still feel pretty up in the air or esoteric, so we are going to try to learn about this in a couple different ways. I first want to honor a lot of the labor and ideas that have gone into the somatic teaching that I've been learning. So these are some of the lineages that have contributed to this, although there are, I'm sure, many more that I don't know about. And this was compiled by actually a person on this list, Stacey K. Haynes. She did the research. I think she's one of the people that did the research around this lineage. So a few of the folks I want to shout out are Morihei Ueshiba. He is the founder of Aikido, which is a Japanese peaceful martial art. And Aikido has a lot of the foundation of somatics is in the Aikido practices. I even use my Jo. You can see it back here, actually. This is my Jo in the back corner. It's a staff that I use for some of my somatic practices. Also want to name Richard Strozzi Heckler. He started the Strozzi Institute, which is where I was trained in somatics and where I've gotten a lot of the information I'm sharing with you tonight. And then Stacey K. Haynes and Sventa Kandawal, they created Generative Somatics, the organization I borrowed our definition from. And as I mentioned, had really helped to politicize somatics in a way that it hadn't been before. I've also listed at the bottom my direct teachers that I have learned from. And, I feel very grateful to all of the time and energy they've put into me. And I feel so honored to get to share that with other people. And I'm excited that you all are here to talk about it with me. I also mentioned that I am a somatic coach. And often people don't know what coaching is, so I thought I would talk a little bit about that piece. Generally, coaching and therapy can get confused, but therapy often is more past oriented. It's more unpacking why we are the way we are. It's not true for all methodologies of therapy, but just generally speaking. Coaching is more future oriented. It's more focused on how we change and where we're going, what goals we want to get to. Coaching is also, at least somatic coaching, is always focused on a commitment or a declaration. So this is a goal that we really feel for in the somatic coaching. The current commitment that I am working on is I am a commitment to living my life, to living a life that fills me up. As a part of a way to be able to pour into others. It's like I need to really be able to be filled up by the things that I do. And somatic coaching is really self-directed. So my clients come and once we have a commitment agreed on, I ask them what they want to work on in regards to that commitment. Based on what they tell me, I suggest a somatic practice for us to do to learn more about that issue they're bringing. And then we harvest all of the learnings from the practice to inform them on their next steps around their goal. All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how in tune do you feel with your body right this second? 1 being not at all, and 10 being I'm really here. And you can just even use your fingers to tell me how you're feeling. I would say I am at maybe like a 4. Okay, great. Ooh, I love it. We're all over the place. If I take a deep breath, I can like maybe bring myself to a 6. Okay. Yeah, 6, 10, 4, 3. We're all over the place. This is just a good marker. Here, next I'm going to demonstrate a practice and just want to see like, does it feel different at the other end of it? I'm going to demo a centering practice. And as I've mentioned, I work one-on-one with folks. So I usually don't lead groups. And I would say if it helps you, it feels supportive to follow along as I'm demonstrating how I center, feel free to. If you're like, Leah, that's too much for me tonight. I don't want to get in touch with my body. Also a really smart decision. Feel free to just watch. That's okay too. And be really in choice about it. If you go into your body and you're like, wow, this is too much, feel free to hop out, go do something else for a second, take a sip of water. I'm also happy afterwards to talk with folks if anything feels like it came up that you weren't anticipating and you want to process with someone. With that, feel free to, if you want, to stand, sit, or lay down. If you want to turn off your cameras while you're doing that, you're welcome to. This practice can be done in any of those setups. And the purpose of a centering practice is to get open, present, and connected with what is. We're not trying to calm ourselves. We're not trying to force anything away. We're really trying to be like, what emotions are here? What sensations are here? And how can I be centered with them? I can be centered and angry. I can be centered and happy. I can be centered and scared. All of these emotions are welcome, and we can also be in choice about how we respond when we're feeling them. We do this practice with our eyes open as a way to integrate our internal and external world. It's also nice because I can center literally anywhere, anytime. I don't have to be in a quiet place and close my eyes. And we center in 4 directions, 4 dimensions. So I'll be demonstrating how I do that myself. I'm going to take a sip of water. Feel free to just take a deep breath and let your energy maybe sink down a little bit. Or at least that's what I do. I take a deep breath and I start to feel my feet on the floor. Oh, sometimes I wiggle my toes or just move my body in any way that feels good. And then I start to notice my length. I start to feel what's my full length from the bottoms of my feet all the way through the crown of my head. I try not to over effort and force it. I try not to collapse. Just kind of come to what feels right for me today. And as I'm centering in my length, I'm feeling for my inherent dignity and the inherent dignity we all have that no one gives us and no one takes away. And I'm checking in here with any sensations, emotions, pressure, or temperature that I notice in my body while I'm centering in length. I notice a little tightness in my diaphragm. I'm noticing a clenching in my stomach, feeling a lot of energy right now. And then I take that length, inviting all of those feelings and emotions to stay. And I start to move to my width. And I really try to breathe into all the way into the edges of my arms. Sometimes I forget that I have arms, so feeling for that. I feel for the IT band going all the way down the outside of my leg. I try to feel for the outside edges of my feet and the outside edges of my ears at the same time. And to me, it feels kind of like an uncurling and unfurling. Like, oh, what does it feel like to be wider today? And in this dimension, I am centering in my connection to others, my sense of belonging, and also to my boundaries. What boundaries do I need in order to be in those relationships? And feeling here for anything, any emotion or sensation that comes up. I'm noticing a tightness in my sides. My toes feel very cold. And with another deep breath, I bring my length and my width, and I start to pay attention to the back body. It can be hard for me to feel into the back body. All our senses, or most of our senses, are on the front body, but we can actually sense a lot more behind us than we are used to. Can feel the full expanse of the back from the shoulders all the way down to the tailbone. Feeling for the backs of the legs, maybe your legs against a chair or the clothes on your back. And in this dimension, I'm also feeling for history, for everything I've experienced and overcome, and also for my ancestors and my ancestors' history. Sometimes here on back body, I like to imagine the ancestors that wish me well, ones that I know or don't know. I'm just feeling their hands on the back of my body, supporting me, leaning back into that. And keeping whatever sensations, emotions came up for you there, and moving through the body to the front body. Here I like to open and close my mouth a little bit and try to relax my jaw. Open my eyes really wide. See if there's any tension in the front body that I can let go of. Letting my belly hang loose. Feeling for the thighs and the knees and the shins. And here in the front body, I start to feel for the future. Our future time together on this call, and also the next week, month, year, and even generations to come feeling for both those short and long-term time horizons. And I notice how feeling for that future starts to organize my body. What are the sensations and emotions here? I start to feel some nervousness come up on this one. And then finally, the fourth dimension that I center in here is in commitment, my commitment or goal or intention, and really letting that length, that width, and depth all meet at this place about 2 inches below the belly button and 2 inches back. Sometimes I bring a hand there with like the thumb in the belly button and my hand below it. In somatics, we call this part of the body, it's one of the three body centers, but we call it the center of skillful action. And letting all those dimensions meet there and really feeling my intention, my commitment come from that place in my body. And saying in my head or out loud my commitment. I am a commitment to living a life that fills me up. And I notice here how that organizes the body. What happens when I say that commitment or that intention? I notice a rush of energy up, a little bit of joy, like, oh yeah, I really want that. Mhm. And then I slowly come back to the screen, bringing that centeredness with me and whatever came up there. And in your own time, feel free to come back and if you're open to it, turn your camera back on. And I'm going to have us do a mood check in the chat. Whether you practice or didn't practice, it's always helpful to try to put names to the emotions we're feeling. And no pressure here to have any quote unquote positive emotions. It's like, no, we want to be present with what's real. Calm, tired, calm, excited, a little sad, intrigued, floating without ground, tired, tense, exhausted, antsy, calm, tired, grateful, calm, sense of determination, lots of calm. Okay, cool. And all of these feelings are so welcome. I'm also always amazed by how the body's really good at holding contradicting emotions at the same time. Like I can be super excited and sad somehow, you know? It's cool that we have the capacity to do that. Thank you all for sharing your moods. I know that can sometimes feel really vulnerable for me, so I appreciate you all doing that. I found that another really helpful way to learn about somatics is through storytelling. So I'm going to tell you the story of my first experience with somatics. Also going to show you this nice little image that I am borrowing from the Strozzi Institute. This is how they see somatic transformation happening, both on an individual and a community level. So when I had mentioned, I came to somatics when I started this job at Bread for the City, because when I started, I realized pretty quickly that I was not in my body at all. I was overanalyzing everything I said and did all day, every interaction. And I was like, this is not working. I couldn't be very authentic with my coworkers. I was having a hard time building a relationship because of that. I was so scared I was going to make a mistake in this job that I wasn't letting myself try anything, which was not working for me and it wasn't working for my team. So I started this somatic training program called Embodying Racial Justice. That was for white racial justice organizers specifically. And in the first couple of sessions, they were like, hey, Leah, what does it feel like to move below your neck? And I kind of didn't even understand what they meant by that at first. It's like, what do you mean? What do I feel below my neck? And they're like, well, do you know where you feel sadness? I was like, I don't even know how to answer that question. I was so up here for so long, and I think had been kind of encouraged to be in my head and in my brain more often that I didn't even really understand what they meant. And my shape when I started at Bread for the City, my literal physical shape was like my shoulders were all the way up to my ears and I was leaning really far forward. I don't know if y'all have experienced that before, but it's like, yeah, I'm here. Like I can do it. I can do it. Kind of like that forcing energy. And so in this class, they helped me with first with the somatic awareness piece, like noticing what's happening in my body and what each of those signals means to me. So I can really tap into that body wisdom. And the way I did that was through somatic practices. So the centering practice we just did, I do that every day. But I also do the joke kata practice, which I talked about for my keto. I do a rowing practice, a sitting meditation. There's also a gratitude practice and a resilience practice. I mean, dozens and dozens. And through the practices, I would get more awareness. And then through more awareness, I would find new practices that would support me to move towards my commitment. And between both of those, it would lead to this third circle around somatic opening. So, in this lineage, we understand that the world has shaped us in many ways and forced us to contract in smart ways. Like they was taking care of us, especially as little kids. We learned how to take care of ourselves by contracting. But often those shapes are now getting in the way of what we're longing for. And somatic opening offers that contraction just a little bit of relaxation. Somatic opening can look like uncontrollable crying, uncontrollable shaking, big waves of energy, big waves of temperature change, maybe uncontrollable laughing. And I had a couple of these somatic openings, and my shoulders started to come down. And I was like, "Oh, hey, I can be moving from this place now." And I got a little wider, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I can connect with people in a different way when I'm leaning back, when I'm not so up here, spinning, spinning, spinning." Uh, and that really led to a change in my behavior. One of my coworkers, after about a year of working together, they were like, "We really love Petty Leah. We think she's so funny." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm being more authentic now, right? I'm not trying to perform something. I'm being a human being, and they are liking it and telling me they're liking it." And I also started to take more initiative. I was leading trainings by myself. Um, I disagreed with the CEO in a meeting with all of the directors. Like I was taking more risks and being more comfortable kind of putting myself out there because I could feel grounded, feel centered, and not have to overanalyze everything all the time. I would still say that I overanalyze a lot. It's not like it's perfect, but I have moved in that direction that's made it way more possible for me to do those kinds of things and way more possible for me to start my own business, right? I could not have done that from a place of spinning and just being in my head. This this also tells us that we're not shaped in a vacuum. So I started to realize a lot of the social context had created that shape in me. So being shaped as a white person, there was a lot of perfectionism that I've been trying to unlearn. And as a woman, I think we're trained to be smaller, to not take up space. All of those different shapings were things I had to unlearn. And those contractions, which had been smart for a while, I had to find some opening and release in those. And somatics tells us that the more we can get into our own bodies, the more we can shape that social context back. We can shift it so that we have a different society that really lets everyone thrive. Somatics also has this connection to spirit and landscape. Spirit is not any particular religion, but just a connection to something bigger than ourselves that allows us to make change in ways that we can't even imagine at the time from that current shape. And then landscape, you might know folks that like grew up near mountains or water and feel really connected to those kinds of landscapes. I grew up in the Midwest, so I love a farmland, I guess, some nice prairie. And it tells us that we are in this reciprocal relationship with the earth. So the earth is shaping us and we're sending energy back into it. And we can practice being in right relationship with the earth in that way too. So that's my story of one story of somatic transformation. At the end of that, I was in kind of this new shape from back here. And I'm like, okay, now what's my commitment? And I came to a new commitment about embodying my full power. And now I'm working on my commitment about living a life that fills me up. So it can help, it keeps evolving. We're always whole, but we always have new longings and new shapes will allow us to reach those longings. Let me tell you a little bit about I told you about my somatic arc of transformation, but everyone's is different. So I thought I'd share a couple of the things that my clients have said they've gotten or what's possible for them with more somatics. So one client said that they're feeling more confident, they're able to make the impact they want to make. One said that they trust themselves now and they know how to resource themselves. One person said that they can identify their limits and they don't push past them anymore. Being more aware of feelings and reactions in the moment, or handling high pressure situations with more ease. And you can see here actually me doing some of these somatic practices with one of my clients. All right. Thought we could take a little time to fill for this last question, to write or draw or meditate or feel, whatever you want to do, around this question of what do you imagine would be possible if you in your work and life, or in your school or whatever, in your work and life and school, if you were more in tune with your body. Start making your way back if you can. During my time, I was drawing this, really beautiful, fancy picture of what would be possible in my life if I was even more in tune with my body. I have maybe a couple more slides left. Let's see. How to go deeper. So you might be like, okay, Leah, you told us all about somatics. So what? Now what? I've been to so many workshops where you're like, okay, what's next? So as I mentioned, centering once a day can be a huge thing if you're interested in this. I will send out a resource list with a bunch of different videos on centering. It also has some books, some podcasts, some videos that you can watch if you want to learn more about somatics. There are also courses you can take around somatics. Some of them are silly expensive. And part of the reason I wanted to get into somatics is to make it more accessible, but I'm happy to share some of those organizations as well. And I would be happy to talk with anyone. I offer free coaching discovery calls if anyone's interested in somatic coaching or you know anyone that you think could benefit. I offer it on a sliding scale too, so it can be available to folks on all kinds of income levels. Or if you just want to chat, I'm happy to do a one-on-one with anyone. Also, if anything came up today while you were doing any of these practices or just in the conversation, and you feel like, oh, this is a little too much for me to hold alone, I'm happy to talk with you about that. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I know uh, we can often feel like it's a burden on other people, and it would not be at all. I'd be so happy to talk with you.
All right, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all. Have a great evening.